So there's been a lot of talk about pollution, climate change, and for good reason. A lot of the world's top scientists are very concerned that we're quickly reaching tipping points and dangerous situations that can lead to more ecological breakdown and everything. So if you're someone who's concerned about these types of things and want to act to reduce your carbon footprint and just do your part, to not be part of the problem, then I'm just going to share with you a few tips, a few things that I've done, and they're not anything crazy. It's pretty simple stuff. So let me show you just a few techniques that you can use to reduce your footprint. I've actually cut my consumption of electricity down to like 250 kilowatt hours a month, which is about 20 to 25% of the national average. And it's a big difference, and it's not very difficult to do. And I'll show you how I've done it. So here's a neat little idea. When it comes to entertainment, instead of using the traditional LCD plasma TVs that use 100 to 150 watts, use one of these rechargeable projectors. This is the size of a pop can here. It's got sound built in. It gives you like a 100-inch screen. You can take it from room to room, and then most importantly, you can charge it up during the day with solar panels. Piece of cake. All you need is like one solar panel charging a little 12-volt battery to keep little devices like this powered up with clean, renewable energy. Alright, another thing I suggest doing is move to the city center. The closer you live to the amenities, the less car dependent you are, which will lead us to the next thing, transportation. Now, transportation, this is a big area where we can make big individual differences, right? So, I still do drive a car. I try to reduce my car trips as much as possible because this is the big problem here. The average car carries about a 12-to-1 dead weight ratio. That's the problem right there. They still require big, expensive, heavy batteries and a lot of energy because you're carrying a lot of dead weight. So, I understand a lot of people are still going to be car dependent because that's just the world that we live in. But there's things that we can do. Driving this is a step in the right direction, and you can pick up vehicles like this Chevy Volt used fairly cheap. A car like this right now would probably go for $6,000–7,000, and it makes a huge difference. You'll go from a car like what I used to own was a Toyota Camry 4-cylinder to this. I've gone from an average of 28 miles to the gallon to right around 80. So it's a big difference. But for trips in town, I tend to use something a little bit more environmentally friendly. That leads me to this little device here, this little bike. It's a cargo bike. It's homemade, basically. It's got a big cargo box in the front, so it's perfect for groceries and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun to ride. But the big thing here is that it provides you a lot of utility, and it doesn't weigh as much as a big vehicle. So for any trips in town to the grocery store, anything like less than 5 miles, I try to use something like this. Now this bike actually has a solar panel canopy that charges a lithium-ion battery that's in there in the electronics box. It's hooked to a voltage boosting charge controller to match the voltage of the battery, and then that powers this electric motor right here. So it's a little bit heavier bike, so it's nice to have that electric assist. But this is a transportation option for an urban area. If you live outside the city, 10–12 miles, maybe not ideal for you. But if you do live in the city center somewhere, you can replace a lot of car trips with something like this. Another transportation alternative for urban areas are these little scooters. I know you've seen a lot of these in the cities, but these are handy. You can throw them in the trunk of the vehicle, while you plug it in at a public charging station or something like that, and then use this to cruise around. It's a fantastic way to get around town. They don't take up space, they don't take up parking. It's easy to recharge with solar. They're less than 30 pounds, so I mean right there you're doing a big part to address the dead weight ratio. So I got a couple other alternatives I'll show you here in a sec, but these are some pretty cool ideas, stuff that I try to use. Now if you don't have a cargo bike or don't feel like building one or having such a large, somewhat cumbersome bicycle to store and all that, any old regular bicycle works wonders. You add a kid trailer and then you got an SUV basically. So you can get all your groceries and everything in the trailer. And I know some of you might be thinking it's kind of ridiculous and I'll be riding a bike to the store, but try it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's efficient. You're reducing your demand for parking. You're being more environmentally friendly, and you're also getting some activity in your life, and that's not a bad thing. So give it a shot. Another thing I've done is I switched over to an electric mower. Just one more step in the right direction. These things can easily be charged with solar, these batteries, and they work well. You know, I have 2 lots here in the city, and this does the job on one battery charge. Another little nifty idea I had was to just make a little solar shed. I just put a 30-watt panel on this shed. I've got it hooked up to a charge controller inside. So there's a simple charge controller, and then I've got a couple small batteries hooked up in parallel to give me a little extra juice, tied to an inverter. And then I use this to power or recharge my tool batteries and my weed eaters and stuff like that. All this kind of yard maintenance stuff. And it's pretty easy. It doesn't produce a ton of power, so you got to watch the levels and use it accordingly. But just a neat little idea, not very difficult. Install a grid-tied solar array. This is also something that I recommend. It's pretty easy to do, it's not really that expensive, and it makes a big difference. I have these south-facing, I have them in a series parallel, so I've tied a few strings together to get to 24 volts, and then I've got it hooked up to a grid tie inverter, which I'll show you, but this makes a big difference. This is part of the reason that I've gotten down to 250 kilowatt hours a month, right? So when this is plugged into the system, any loads on your system will be powered by solar first until the production is, used up, and then you'll actually be drawing grid power. But what you'll find is in the summer, you can reduce your consumption dramatically because these things are always pumping out juice. So I'll show you how it's hooked up to the inverter here in just a second. But a lot of fun. Plus there's a 30% rebate from the government for these. So pretty good idea. Pretty easy to do. The grid tie inverter sounds a lot more complicated than it really is, I promise you that. Alright, so you got this box here, you got a positive and you got a negative, right? That's what you bring in from the panel. This is 24 volts. If you need to learn how to do that, there's a lot of instructions you can look up how to wire in series and stuff like that, but super easy, right? So basically you get positive and negative coming in. And then once you plug that in properly, all you have to do is plug it into an outlet. So that's it. It starts to feed electricity into your grid. And so far, there's the production I've had so far for the summer for the small grid. Nothing crazy, 232 kilowatt hours, but it does make you a lot more conscious of your usage. And thus it will help you reduce it considerably. Also, I have a battery bank here that I charge up. This just gives me some power that I can use at night to charge up my e-bikes and scooters and stuff like that. I have it hooked to just a standard battery charger that I have on a timer. It's plugged into a normal outlet, but it's on a timer so that it only comes on during the day, so that it's charging this battery with solar power. So, just another cool thing that you can do. Alright.